Dad, you're not welcome here for Christmas.
When my son Michael told me I wasn't welcome at his house for Christmas, I didn't yell, I didn't plead. I just smiled, got in my old pickup, and drove home. That was December 15th. By New Year's Day, I had successfully canceled the automatic transfers that had been paying their $2,800 mortgage for 5 straight years. And that wasn't even the sweet part. The real revenge? That started a few days later when they needed a ride from the airport. You won't believe what I did to them next, or what I found out about my wife. Justice must be restored, and arrogance, well, arrogance must always be punished. Before I dive into the full story of how I took back my life and my dignity, do me a favor. If you love stories of sweet revenge and finding your self-respect, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments where you're listening from. It helps me bring you more true stories like this one. The scent of Isabella's expensive vanilla candles hung heavy in the air, mixing with the fake pine smell of their enormous, 12-foot Christmas tree. I was sitting on the leather couch. I'd helped Michael pick out a couch that felt less like family furniture and more like a showpiece. I could make my famous turkey this year, I suggested, trying to inject some warmth into the stiff atmosphere. The one with the sage stuffing your mother, Maria, used to love. Remember? She always said it was better than her grandmother's. The words hung there, innocent and hopeful. Michael, my son, shifted beside me. I watched his wedding ring catch the light, and something in his posture changed. His shoulders pulled inward, like a boxer bracing for a blow. "Dad," he started, his gaze locked on the marble coffee table, the one I'd paid for because Isabella decided their old stuff wasn't sophisticated enough. "Unfortunately, you won't be welcome here for Christmas this year." The sound hit me like a physical punch. I blinked, certain I'd misheard him. "What do you mean? Why wouldn't I be welcome?" He still couldn't look up. "Isabella's parents are coming, Cody and Catherine Jenkins, and they'd prefer if you weren't here. It's just easier this way, Dad. They'd prefer." My hands went cold. "You know how her family is about traditions," Michael continued, his voice shrinking. "They have their own way of doing things." I looked around the living room. The silk curtains Isabella had demanded for privacy, the gorgeous hardwood floors that had come from my second mortgage, the crown molding that had maxed out my credit card. Every single inch of this perfect, suburban, Seattle area house bore the fingerprints of my love, my sacrifice, and my utter foolishness. "Their own way," I repeated slowly. "And what way is that, Michael?" He flinched. "Dad, please don't make this harder than it has to be." Through the kitchen archway, I could see Isabella's professional-grade KitchenAid mixer. $2,000 of my money, sitting there, probably used twice since October for a holiday baking phase that lasted exactly 3 weeks. "Where will I spend Christmas then?" I asked, the question coming out quieter than I intended. Michael's face crumbled, the guilt finally breaking through. "Maybe you could, I don't know, maybe visit Aunt Rosa. Or we could do something the weekend after." The weekend after. Like Christmas was a dentist appointment that could be rescheduled for their convenience. I stood up, my old knees protesting after 8 years of carrying this burden alone. I didn't look back as I moved toward the door, past the coat closet that held Isabella's dozen expensive jackets, past the family photos, where my face, ironically, seemed to get smaller and more distant in every frame. My hand found the cold doorknob. "Son," I said, finally, without turning around, "tell Isabella's parents, Feliz Navidad." The December air in the Seattle suburbs hit my face like a slap as I walked toward my Ford F-150. Behind me, I heard the soft, final click of the front door closing. I sat in the driver's seat, engine off, staring at the warm, twinkling lights of the house I'd bought but would never belong in. The man I used to be, the one who believed family was everything, who'd give his last dollar to see his son smile, that man was a fool. The numbers started rolling through my head like a broken slot machine. $2,800 every single month for 5 years. I didn't even have to do the math to know the principal amount was over. $140,000. More money than my late wife Maria and I had saved for our entire retirement. Gone. Just gone. That money had come from refinancing our home, Maria's and mine, just to cover their down payment. I remembered the loan officer's pitying look. "Mr. Flores, are you sure about this? You're putting a lot at risk for someone else's investment." Someone else's investment. That phrase had stuck with me. 2 years ago, when Michael lost his job, I'd taken out a second mortgage to cover them. "Just temporary, Dad, until I get back on my feet," he'd promised. Isabella had stood right behind him, her $700 purse slung over her shoulder, nodding sympathetically while calculating how much my desperation was worth. I pulled into my own driveway, the cracked concrete a testament to what I couldn't afford to fix because every spare dollar had vanished into their perfect suburban fantasy. The phone rang just as I was fumbling with my keys. Isabella. Perfect timing. I answered on the fourth ring, letting her stew for a moment. Dennis. Her voice was dripping with that false sweetness, the same tone she used when asking me to cover their water bill or property taxes. I heard about the little misunderstanding with Michael. Misunderstanding? I leaned against my kitchen counter, coat still on. I don't think there's any misunderstanding, Isabella. You made your position quite clear. Look, I know this seems harsh, but you have to understand my parents' perspective. They're very traditional people. They expect a certain atmosphere during the holidays. A certain atmosphere, I repeated. And what atmosphere is that? I heard the rustle of shopping bags in the background, money that should have been going to their mortgage. Well, frankly, Dennis, they're not used to your kind of cooking. She finally delivered the line. All that spicy Mexican food and loud music. And they're educated people. They expect conversations about current events, literature, art, you know. It hit harder than a physical blow. 8 years of swallowing insults for Michael's sake. My kind of cooking. I kept my voice steady, controlled. You mean the food you ate every Sunday for 3 years when money was tight? The tamales you said reminded you of your grandmother? That was different. We were appreciative then. But now, with my parents. Now, with your parents, you can't have the Mexican peasant embarrassing you at your fancy dinner table. I finished for her. The false sweetness vanished from her end of the line. Don't be dramatic, Dennis. This isn't about race. It's about class. My father graduated, summa cum laude, from Washington State. My mother speaks 4 languages. They summer in the Hamptons. What exactly would you contribute to the dinner conversation? Stories about laying tile? Heat flooded my chest, but I kept my voice steady. I built a business from nothing. I've employed over 50 people. I've paid more in taxes than your father made in his best year. Money isn't everything, Dennis. Breeding matters, education matters, and frankly, Maria understood her place better than you understand yours. The line went dead silent. She'd crossed it. The line I didn't even know existed until she'd stomped across it in her designer heels. What did you say about my wife? My voice was dangerously low. I'm just saying she knew how to blend in better. She didn't make waves. She understood that some spaces weren't meant for her. My hand tightened around the phone until my knuckles were white. Maria had more class in her little finger than your entire bloodline will ever possess. Oh, please, she scoffed. She was a house cleaner who got lucky. At least she had the good sense to stay quiet about it. Isabella. My voice dropped to a cold whisper. I want you to listen very carefully. This conversation is over. We're done pretending to be family. You can't just... We're done, I repeated, and ended the call. I set the phone down carefully. The kitchen felt different, smaller, but somehow cleaner, like a great weight had been lifted from the air. I walked to my desk, pulled out the manila folder I'd been avoiding for months, bank statements, mortgage papers, 5 years of automatic transfers that had bled me dry while they lived like royalty. Time to stop the bleeding. The documents spread across my kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. 5 years of bank statements, each one showing that same transfer. $2,800 on the 15th of every month, vanishing into their account, a paper trail of my own stupidity. I started adding it up again. By the 3rd year, I'd stopped buying myself new clothes. The 4th year, I'd started shopping at discount grocery stores. This, the 5th year, I'd been eating peanut butter sandwiches for lunch just to make ends meet. The total, without counting the down payment, the roof, the furniture, or the utilities I'd covered. Michael's college fund, Maria's life insurance money, the retirement savings we'd planned for all of it gone. Poured into a house where I wasn't welcome for Christmas dinner. I picked up the phone and called my bank. Customer service, this is Jennifer. How can I help you today? I need to cancel an automatic transfer, I said, my voice steadier than it had been in years. I gave her the details. She was professional, efficient, and thankfully, non-judgmental about why a 62-year-old man was canceling the payment on what was obviously his son's mortgage. I see the transfer you're referring to, Mr. Flores. $2,800 monthly to Wells Fargo. Account ending in 7,423. How long have you been making this transfer? 5 years, I said. The words tasted bitter. And you want to cancel it? Effective immediately? I looked around my kitchen. The outdated appliances, the walls that needed painting, the windows that leaked cold air because I'd spent my home improvement money on someone else's castle. Effective immediately, I confirmed. Done. The transfer has been canceled. Is there anything else I can help you with today? No, I said, and surprised myself with how good that word felt. No, that's everything. I hung up, sitting in the sudden glorious quiet. Outside, Christmas lights twinkled in windows where families gathered without conditions, without judgment. For the first time in 5 years, next month's budget would balance. For the first time since Maria died, I could afford to fix my porch light, buy decent groceries, maybe even take a vacation. I gathered up the bank statements, walked to my fireplace, struck a match, and watched 5 years of martyrdom turn to ash. The fire felt warm on my face, warmer than I'd felt in years. I poured myself a glass of the good whiskey, the bottle I'd been saving for a special occasion that never seemed to come. Tonight felt special enough. "Merry Christmas to me," I said to Maria's photo on the mantel, and I truly meant it. The next morning, the freedom tasted better than the Colombian coffee I'd finally allowed myself to buy. My phone rang at exactly 10:47 a.m. Isabella. Her name flashed on the screen like a warning label. Dennis. Her voice was clipped with that familiar, barely concealed impatience. "I need you to pick up my parents from Spokane Airport. Their flight from Portland arrives at 2. I set down my mug, watching the steam curl toward the ceiling. "Isabella, did you forget about our conversation yesterday? Look, whatever that was about, we need to focus on practical matters now," she snapped. "My parents need transportation, and you're the only one with time during the day." The audacity was breathtaking. Less than 24 hours after telling me I wasn't worthy of sharing Christmas dinner with her. Classy family, she expected me to serve as their personal chauffeur and luggage handler. "And you're asking me because that's what family does, Dennis. They help each other." She spat, irritation sharpening her tone. "Besides, let's be honest here. You're not my rival. You're too weak to be my rival, so just get in your truck and pick them up." There it was. The final insult, wrapped up in a command. "What airline?" I asked quietly. "Alaska Air Flight 447. They'll be at baggage claim carousel 3. And Dennis," she added, her nails tapping against something hard, probably the granite countertop I'd paid for. "They're expecting someone who can handle their luggage properly. Don't embarrass us. And wear something decent. Maybe that blue shirt you wore to Michael's graduation. They notice things like that." The line went dead. She hadn't even said thank you. 2 p.m. Flight 447. Carousel 3. I glanced at the clock. 10:52 a.m. Plenty of time. I poured another cup of coffee and opened yesterday's crossword puzzle. 7 across. Delayed gratification. 12 letters. At 2:15 p.m., the exact time Cody and Catherine Jenkins would be standing at Carousel 3, I was settling into my favorite armchair with a cup of Earl Grey and the Sunday edition of the Spokane Review. The crossword lay completed on the coffee table. The answer to 7 across? Postponement. My phone buzzed. Isabella. I let it ring. Today, the silence in my house felt different. Earned. Intentional. 2:47 p.m. The phone buzzed again. I saw the text preview. "Dad, where are you? My parents are." I turned the phone face down and returned to the sports section. By 3:30 p.m., my phone had buzzed 6 times. I'd finished the newspaper, brewed more tea, and started organizing the junk drawer. Amazing what you could accomplish when you weren't rushing around serving people who considered you their personal bellhop. The 7th call came at 3:45 p.m. It was an unknown number, probably Cody Jenkins borrowed a phone at the airport. I let that one ring too. At 4:15 p.m., the buzzing became constant, like an angry wasp trapped against glass. I walked to the kitchen, unplugged my landline, and turned my cell phone completely off. Perfect silence. I made myself a grilled cheese sandwich and heated up a can of tomato soup comfort food. I hadn't allowed myself in months because every grocery dollar had gone to subsidizing their lifestyle. Somewhere across town, 3 people were probably standing in an airport parking garage, arguing about taxi fare, and wondering how their personal servant had the audacity to strand them. The thought made my soup taste even better. By 5 p.m., I was reaching for the remote when someone started pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding, the aggressive hammering that announced pure fury. I walked slowly toward the sound, already knowing exactly who I'd find. Through the peephole, I saw 3 figures crowded onto my small porch like wolves circling prey. I opened the door to find Cody Jenkins's red face inches from mine. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted, pushing past me into my living room without invitation. "We waited at that goddamn airport for over 3 hours." Catherine followed him, her perfect hair disheveled, her lips a thin line of pure hatred. "This is completely unacceptable behavior from someone your age, Dennis. Absolutely barbaric." Isabella brought up the rear, her designer coat wrinkled, her makeup smeared. "You humiliated us. Do you have any idea what you've done? My parents had to take a $40 taxi because you decided to flake out of my house." My voice cut through their chorus of rage like a blade through silk. "Excuse me?" Cody's face went from red to purple. "You don't get to make demands here, buddy. Not after what you pulled today." "This is my house," I said quietly, not moving from my position by the door. "And I want you out. Now." Catherine stepped forward, her voice dripping with the condescension she'd perfected over decades of looking down on people like me. "Dennis, you clearly don't understand the magnitude of your mistake. My husband has connections throughout this city. Business connections, social connections. You can't treat people like us this way and expect—" "This was a lesson for you," I interrupted, meeting her gaze steadily. "A lesson about your excessive arrogance and your poor treatment of people you consider beneath you." Isabella's mouth fell open. "A lesson? Who do you think you are to teach anyone anything? You're nobody. I'm someone who finally stopped being your personal bank account and taxi service," I finished. I stepped aside and held the door open wider. "The lesson is over. You can leave." Cody jabbed a finger toward my chest, but didn't quite dare touch me. "You have no idea who you're messing with, old man. I know people, important people, people who can make your life very, very difficult." "Is that a threat, Mr. Jenkins?" "It's a promise," he sneered. "You think abandoning elderly people at an airport is just something you can do without consequences? You're about to learn exactly how wrong you are." Catherine nodded, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Indeed. Actions have consequences, Dennis, and yours will be quite public." They filed out like a defeated army, but Cody turned back at the threshold. "You'll regret this," he said. "I guarantee it." I closed the door and turned the deadbolt with a satisfying click. The house felt cleaner with them gone, but their parting words echoed in the sudden quiet. Public consequences, important people, connections. For the first time in this whole mess, I felt a flicker of concern, but it was quickly overwhelmed by something much stronger. Anticipation. 3 days later, I was enjoying my morning coffee and scanning the poppet bowl. Spokane Review, when I saw my own face staring back at me from page 3. The headline read, "Spokane Businessman Abandons Elderly Couple at Airport During Holiday Storm." There I was, an old photo from my company's website, probably 5 years out of date. Below it, a story that made my blood run cold and my temper flare in equal measure. Cody and Catherine Jenkins, visiting their daughter for Christmas, were left stranded at Spokane International Airport for over 4 hours when family member Dennis Flores failed to appear for a prearranged pickup. The couple, both in their late 52nds, waited in frigid temperatures as a winter storm warning was issued. Winter storm warning? It had been 52 degrees and sunny. "We couldn't believe someone would just abandon us like that," Cody Jenkins, a retired banking executive, was quoted as saying. "We called repeatedly, but Mr. Flores never answered his phone. We were forced to take an expensive taxi in dangerous weather conditions. At our age, this kind of treatment is not just inconsiderate, it's dangerous." The article, written by lifestyle editor Patricia Morrison, painted me as the villain, a cruel old man who'd suddenly snapped without provocation, with no mention of the Christmas rejection or the years of financial exploitation. Cody had called in favors. He used his banking connections to get this story placed exactly where it would do maximum damage to my reputation. Smart. Very smart. In a small city like Spokane, reputation was everything. They had declared total war. I folded the newspaper carefully, my mind shifting into the methodical planning mode that had built my business from nothing. This wasn't about airport pickups anymore. This was about winning. I pulled out my laptop and began typing names into search engines. Cody Jenkins, Catherine Jenkins, Isabella Flores. I documented their social media profiles, their connections, their habits, and their weaknesses, everything they'd foolishly made public over the years. If they wanted to play chess, I'd show them what a real strategist looked like. I spent the next 3 days in a different world, the world of Dennis Flores, the strategic businessman, not the broken-down old man. My laptop became Command Central. Cody Jenkins, retired First National Bank manager, member of the country club, treasurer of the Business Leaders Association, a man with a lot to lose. Catherine's Instagram, a perfect picture of refined living charity, luncheons, wine tastings, vacation photos tagged with number blessed life, all built on other people's money. Isabella's Facebook, posts about our beautiful home and check-ins at expensive restaurants while I was covering their utility bills. A recent status. So excited for Christmas dinner with family. Can't wait to show off our hosting skills. The narcissism was breathtaking. But it was Michael's LinkedIn that gave me the final piece. His recent activity showed a new connection. Patricia Morrison, the lifestyle editor who wrote the hatchet job about me. I leaned back. They had made 3 critical mistakes. 1. Underestimated me. 2. Gone public with their attack. 3. Documented their entire privileged lifestyle online. A quick search showed 3 mutual connections between Cody and Patricia's editor. The story hadn't just appeared. It had been planted carefully and deliberately. Amateur hour. I opened a new document and began typing. Not a response, but a timeline. 5 years of financial support, documented with bank statements and receipts. The $47,000 down payment from my home equity loan. The $18,000 kitchen renovation from my credit card. 60 monthly mortgage payments of $2,800, totaling $168,000. Over $250,000. By evening, I had everything organized in a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. Bank statements, receipts, photos of their funded purchases, and a printed copy of the newspaper article with my handwritten notes detailing every lie and distortion. December 24th was circled in red, not because it was Christmas Eve, but because it was the perfect day for justice. Isabella's Facebook event showed they were hosting Christmas dinner for 12 people. Family, friends, neighbors, the kind of people who read the crust. Spokane Review, the kind of people who deserved to know the truth. Tomorrow was Christmas Eve. Tomorrow, Cody Jenkins and his family were going to learn what happens when you declare war on someone who actually knows how to fight. Christmas Eve morning, I laid out my evidence like a lawyer preparing for trial. Bank statements, monthly payments highlighted in yellow, receipts, and photos of their jewelry and expensive decorations. I copied the entire packet. 12 times, one for each dinner guest. The newspaper article went on top of each stack. My red pen notes visible in the margins. Lie, written next to Cody's quotes about dangerous weather. False, beside the claim of my erratic behavior. Missing context, where they'd failed to mention 5 years of financial support. I dressed in my best navy blue suit, the one I'd worn to Maria's funeral. Today, I was saying goodbye to the man who'd been a doormat. Tonight, I'd be someone who commanded respect. At 6:30 p.m., I loaded my briefcase with the evidence packets and drove to their affluent neighborhood. The house glowed with warm light. Cars filled the driveway and lined the street. I could see Isabella playing hostess through the front window, presiding over the home my money had helped them buy. I parked across the street and checked my watch. 6:45 p.m. Late enough that everyone would be seated for dinner. Early enough that they'd still be on the main course. No easy escape for anyone. The front door was unlocked, of course. Isabella loved showing off how safe their neighborhood was. I let myself in quietly. I heard laughter and conversation from the dining room. Then, Catherine's voice, clear and loud. "But darling, that's not how we do things in our family. Our family," after everything they'd done to exclude me. I walked into the dining room carrying my briefcase. 12 faces turned toward me, their expressions ranging from surprise to horror. Isabella froze with her wine glass halfway to her lips. Michael's face went pale. Cody and Catherine looked like they'd seen a ghost. "Good evening, everyone," I said calmly, setting my briefcase on their marble sideboard. "I hope you don't mind me joining your Christmas celebration." Isabella found her voice first. "Dennis, this is completely inappropriate. You need to leave immediately." "Number 1. Actually," I said, opening my briefcase and pulling out the first stack of papers. "I think your guests deserve to know who really paid for this dinner, this house, and this lifestyle you've been showing off. A woman I didn't recognize, probably one of Catherine's charity friends, leaned forward with curiosity. What is he talking about? He's having some kind of episode, Isabella said quickly. Michael, call someone. But I was already moving around the table, placing a packet of documents in front of each guest. Here are the bank records, I said conversationally. 5 years of financial support, $168,000 in mortgage payments alone, plus the down payment, renovations, furniture, appliances. Everything you see around you. The room went silent, except for the rustling of papers as 12 people began examining the evidence. I watched their faces change as they absorbed the numbers, the dates, the undeniable proof of my generosity and their deception. This is outrageous, one man muttered, staring at a bank statement. Isabella, why didn't you tell us any of this? Another guest asked. Isabella's perfect composure was cracking. It's more complicated than it looks. Dennis volunteered to help us. We never asked. Actually, I interrupted, pulling out the newspaper article. Let's talk about what you did ask for and what you told the media about me. I placed copies of the newspaper article on the table, watching the guests recognize my photo. Now, I said, my voice carrying clearly, let's talk about the real manipulators in this family. Cody's face had gone from red to ashen. Catherine sat rigid in her chair. Mr. Jenkins here used his banking connections to plant this story, I continued, tapping the newspaper. Notice how I'm portrayed as unstable and dangerous, abandoning poor elderly people in freezing weather. A gray-haired man in an expensive sweater looked up. Cody, what is this about? The weather was 52 degrees and sunny, I said before Cody could answer. And they weren't stranded tourists. They were Isabella's parents, coming to the Christmas dinner I'd been banned from attending because I wasn't good enough for their company. That's not we never said, Catherine began, her voice strangled. You never said what, Catherine? I pulled out my phone, where I'd screenshotted several of Isabella's social media posts. That I was too low-class for your parents? That my Mexican food and working-class conversation would embarrass you in front of your educated friends? The charity friend shifted uncomfortably. Catherine, surely you didn't. He's twisting everything! Cody blustered, but his voice lacked conviction. This man has serious mental health issues, the stress of aging, financial problems. Financial problems? I almost laughed. Mr. Jenkins, I've been supporting your daughter and son-in-law to the tune of nearly $3,000 a month for 5 years. The only financial problems here are the ones you're about to have. I turned to the entire table. These people have taken over $200,000 from me while calling me names behind my back. They've manipulated my son, banned me from family gatherings, and when I finally stood up for myself, they tried to destroy my reputation in the newspaper. Michael spoke for the first time, his voice a whisper. Dad, I didn't know about the newspaper. Your wife knew, I said quietly. And her parents orchestrated it. They turned me into a villain for refusing to be their personal ATM and chauffeur. The social dynamic in the room was shifting like tectonic plates. The guests were realizing that everything they'd been told about tonight's hosts was built on lies. This is unconscionable, said an elderly woman in pearls. Cody, how could you let your daughter take advantage of this man's generosity, then attack him publicly when he stopped enabling it? He abandoned us at the airport, Catherine cried. After you told me I wasn't welcome at Christmas dinner because my presence would be inappropriate for your parents, I said calmly. After 5 years of paying their bills while you looked down on me for my ethnicity and education level. The silence was deafening. 12 people were staring at Cody and Catherine with disgust. Isabella made one last attempt. Everyone, please. This is a family matter that's gotten out of hand. No, I said firmly. This stopped being a family matter when you made it public. When you used the newspaper to attack my character. When you decided my reputation was acceptable, collateral damage for your pride. I looked around the table. I wanted you all to know the truth before you read about Dennis Flores in the paper again, because you will read about me again, but next time, it'll be the real story. I closed my briefcase and straightened my tie. Enjoy the rest of your dinner. It's the last one I'll be paying for. As I walked toward the door, I could hear the eruption beginning behind me. Voices raised in accusation, questions demanding answers, the sound of a carefully constructed social facade falling apart. It was the most beautiful Christmas music I'd ever heard. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in March, delivered by certified mail, with the weight of legal consequences behind every word. Notice of default. Final demand for payment. Inside, 3 months of missed mortgage payments had caught up with Michael and Isabella like a tsunami of reality. $8,400 in arrears. 14 days to bring the account current or face foreclosure on the house I'd helped them buy. I set the letter aside and returned to my coffee, reading it the way you'd read news about distant weather. Interesting, but not my problem anymore. My phone had been ringing for weeks. Isabella's number was blocked after the first hysterical voicemail. Cody and Catherine's social standing had evaporated like morning mist after their Christmas dinner humiliation. Even Michael's calls had been ignored, a test of how long it would take him to swallow his pride. The answer was 97 days. He knocked on my door that Thursday evening. He wasn't the confident man who'd excluded me from Christmas dinner. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 3 months. Dark circles under his eyes, his expensive suit wrinkled, the smell of desperation clinging to him. "Dad," he said when I opened the door. "We need to talk." I let him in. He looked around my house like he was seeing it for the first time. The new furniture I'd bought with my first mortgage-free paycheck. The fresh paint. The repairs I'd finally been able to afford now that I wasn't subsidizing someone else's American dream. "Nice place," he said quietly. "It's what happens when you spend money on yourself instead of people who don't appreciate it," I replied, settling into my new recliner. He perched on the edge of my couch, afraid to get comfortable. "Dad, I need you to know how sorry I am about everything. Christmas dinner, the newspaper article, the way Isabella, the way we treated you." "Go on." I didn't know about Cody planting that story. I swear I didn't. When I found out, he ran his hands through his hair. "Jesus, Dad, the things they said about you behind your back, the way they talked about our family, about Mom's memory." My jaw tightened at the mention of Maria. "And what exactly did they say about your mother? That she knew her place better than you knew yours. That she understood boundaries," he mumbled, unable to meet my eyes. "I should have defended you. I should have stood up to them years ago." "Yes," I said simply, "you should have." The weight of 5 years of mistakes filled the space between us. "The house is in foreclosure, Michael," he said finally. "I know. We can't make the payments without—" He stopped, realizing how it sounded. "Without my help," I finished. "Without the money I was sending every month while you let your wife's family treat me like garbage. I know how it looks. Do you know how much money I sent you over 5 years?" I leaned forward. He nodded miserably. "Isabella calculated it after Christmas. The mortgage payments, the down payment, everything else. Over $200,000. $237,468, I corrected. "I know the exact amount because I finally did something I should have done years ago. I added it up." "Dad, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to fix this." "You can't fix it, son. That money is gone. But more importantly, those years are gone. 5 years when I could have been building a relationship with you instead of funding your wife's fantasy life." I know that now." He looked up with something that might have been hope. "But maybe we could start over. Maybe there's a way to—" "Are you asking me to resume the mortgage payments?" The hope died in his eyes. We're going to lose everything, Dad. The house, Isabella's respect for me, her parents' approval." "You'll figure it out," I said, not unkindly. "The same way I figured out how to live without a son who respected me. The same way I learned to spend Christmas alone while you celebrated with people who thought I was beneath them." He started to cry then, quietly. "I lost you, didn't I? I chose them over you. And now, I've lost you forever." I watched him. This man I'd raised and loved, who'd let his wife's family convince him that his own father wasn't good enough. "Michael," I said finally, "you didn't lose me. You gave me away. There's a difference." He wiped his eyes. "Is there any chance, any way you could forgive me?" "I forgave you months ago," I said, and meant it. "But forgiveness doesn't mean going back to the way things were. It doesn't mean pretending this didn't happen, or that I'm going to resume paying for a lifestyle that came with the condition that I be grateful for scraps of your attention." "Then what does it mean?" I stood up and walked to my mantel. Maria's photo sat next to a new picture. Me with my sister, Rosa, and her family at Easter dinner. The first holiday I'd spent with people who actually wanted me there. "It means that if you want a relationship with me, you'll have to build it from scratch," I told him. "It means showing me respect instead of demanding I earn it. It means making choices based on what's right, not what's convenient." I turned back. "And it means that the next time someone, your wife, her parents, anyone tries to exclude me from family gatherings, you'll remember who actually acts like family." He nodded slowly, The house? He asked quietly. Isn't my problem anymore, I finished. You're a grown man, Michael. Figure it out like grown men do. Get a job that pays enough to cover your bills. Sell the house and buy something you can afford. Stop living beyond your means and expecting other people to subsidize your choices. He stood up, his shoulders straight for the first time since he'd arrived. You're right about all of it. I know. He walked to the door, then turned back. Dad, for what it's worth, seeing you stand up for yourself at Christmas dinner, I was proud of you. Embarrassed and angry, but proud too. Good, I said. Maybe there's hope for you yet. After he left, I poured myself a glass of whiskey and stepped onto my back porch. Spring was coming to Spokane. I'd wasted 5 years being a doormat for people who didn't appreciate sacrifice. I wasn't planning to waste any more. My phone buzzed with a text from Rosa. Dinner Sunday. The kids want to show you their school projects. I smiled and typed back. Wouldn't miss it. The takeaway, real family, I realized, was something you found with people who actually wanted you there. Everything else was just expensive theater, and I was done buying tickets to shows where I wasn't welcome on stage. The whiskey tasted like freedom, and the future looked exactly as bright as I was willing to make it. If this story resonated with you, and if you believe that self-respect is the only price worth paying for freedom, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts on Michael's final choice. Thanks for listening.